Our first slide tells us to graph y equals x squared minus 3 and y equals x minus 2 squared minus 3. So if you think back to your chapter where we talked about shifts and slides and different things that way, this minus 3, because it's outside of the x squared, is going to just bring it down 3 units on the y-axis. And then all you're going to do is just graph your parabola. So you're going to go over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1, over that side, over 2 up 4, over 2 up 4, and then just shoot your parabola that way. In the next example, you have x minus 2 squared minus 3, so you're still going to go vertically down 3, but you have to shift it over 2. And remember, it's x minus h squared plus k, so I'm going to shift it over 2 this way and then down 3. So I'm still going to graph my parabola, and there I go. So we're going to use these same types of things into our sine and cosine curves. Section 8.3 is modeling periodic behavior. This will be with shifting vertically and horizontally. So do not worry about this worksheet at this point. We are going to I'm just having you guys for today go through and finish this notes out. So here are our equations. We have y equals a sine of b times x minus h and y equals a cosine of b x minus h. The a is still our amplitude, and the b is what to do with the period. So you still get the period by saying 2 pi over b. Okay? The first graph we're going to draw is y equals sine of theta plus pi over 2. We go through, our amplitude is 1, so our amplitude's 1. Our b is right there. If you don't see anything, you can assume it's 1. So b equals 1. So our period's 2 pi over 1. Our period's 2 pi, which means our intervals will be 2 pi times a fourth, so you get pi over 2. We now have to think about our phase shift, which just means how much you're shifting left and right. So because this is theta minus negative pi over 2, we're going to start at negative pi over 2. So if I start at negative pi over 2, and I keep adding the interval of pi over 2, I'm going to have negative pi over 2, 0, pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, which is just pi, and then I'm going to end at 3 pi over 2. So you should have a total of 5 points. So go over here, you can just put, there's my negative pi over 2, 0, pi over 2, pi, here's my 3 pi over 2, and I should be good there. And then I'm just graphing the sine curve. So it starts at 0. I mean, it would have started at 0. I'm going to shift it over here, and then we'll say that this is 1 and that's negative 1. So it just does this. Okay, so the only difference is that now instead of starting the graph at 0, it just shifts it over to the left to negative pi over 2. So example 2 tells us we're graphing y equals the cosine of theta minus pi over 4. Our amplitude is still the 1. Sorry about that. Our period is still going to be 2 pi over the 1, so I'm going to get 2 pi right here. Our interval is going to be times that by a fourth, so 2 pi times 1/4, which gives me pi over 2. And our phase shift now is going to be pi over 4. So I'm going to start at pi over 4, and I'm going to add each time the pi over 2, which we can also write as 2 pi over 4. So if I add 2 pi over 4 each time, I get 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, and 9 pi over 4. You want to make sure you have 5 complete items right there. So I shift over, there's going to be my pi over 4. Be careful not to call the next one 2 pi over 4, because you're going to, if each little tick mark's pi over 4, I'm going to go over to this one to be 3 pi, 5 pi, 7 pi, and then that's my 9 pi over 4. You can write each tick mark in if you want. So it's a cosine, amplitude of 1. So there's my 1. Here's my negative 1. I'm going to start up at the 1, but I start at the pi over 4. So it just keeps going how I do my regular cosine curve. And there you go. You're all set. Okay, so now we have a couple different things going on here. We have a negative in front of the cosine, and we have a 2 next to the theta. So you want to be able to pull the 2 out. So we're going to rewrite this as y is the negative cosine, and pull the 2 out. If you pull the 2 out, you get theta plus pi over 4. So just in your head, distribute back in and make sure you get pi over 2 that way. So going through the steps again. So now we're going to look at our amplitude. It's still going to be 1. It just starts at the negative 1. Our period's going to be 2 pi over this 2. So our period is pi. Our interval is going to be pi times 1/4. So that's pi over 4. And our phase shift is going to be negative pi over 4. So that helps out that the interval is the same units as the phase shift. So you're going to start at negative pi over 4. You're going to keep adding pi over 4, so that gets me to 0. Pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. And realizing that that's really pi over 2. So now I'm going to come here, I'm just going to mark it. I might make every 2 pi over 4. So this negative pi over 4. There's 0. That's pi over 4, pi over 2. And this one's going to be my 3 pi over 4. So going through and graphing it, it's cosine. I'm starting down below, so I'm going to make this my, I'll put the negative 1 down here and put the 1 up there. So I'm going to start down here, then go up to 0, then go here, here, and end here. And you're all set. So now we're going to talk about what happens if you have a K out there, and it's going to be going vertically. So really, you'll end up seeing this over here as plus K. So you'll just have y equals. And same thing for sine and cosine. It just means it's going to translate the K units vertically. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is fill in some information that we have. We know that our amplitude is 2, because that's what's in front right here. We don't need to pull out anything inside the parenthesis because it's just a 1. So our period is going to be 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi. Timesing that by 1/4 means our intervals are going to be pi over 2. Our phase shift is going to also be pi over 2. And our vertical shift is going to be 1. So if you go through, you can kind of give yourself a template. I'm going to call each tick mark 1. So now that you know your vertical shift is 1, it just means that the graph essentially just gets moved up by 1. So I would go through and mark a new line That's like your zero line that goes with the x-axis. So if if my amplitude's 2, I'm going to go up 2, and down 2. So the graph will be between there, okay? We have a phase shift of pi over 2, so that sets my tick marks as pi over 2, and then my interval is pi over 2. So that's 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, and 5 pi over 2. So if I say that that's pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2. So just remember your graphing sign. So where normally it would start, this is like your new 0 mark. And then you're going to go up, down, down to here, and this way. So if I can do something for you, if you think of this graph like this, really by a vertical shift, all I've done to this graph is move it up by 1. So again, it normally would look like this, right, with an amplitude of 2, but because I have a vertical shift of 1, I'm just taking the graph and moving it up by 1. I hope that helps you visualize it. Now we're on to example 5. You will see the graph is y equals cosine of 2 theta plus pi over 4 minus 1. Because you have a 2 theta, you're going to need to pull that out. So you can go ahead and say that that's going to be cosine of 2 times theta plus pi over 2. Actually, no, that would be pi over 8 minus 1. And you definitely want to check yourself because 2 times pi over 8 will give you the pi over 4. So your amplitude now is going to be 1 because that's the 1 right here. Your period is 2 pi over the b. So 2 pi over 2 is just going to be pi. Your intervals are going to be pi times a fourth. So that gives you pi over 4. Your phase shift is going to be negative pi over 8. Sorry, we'll make the 8 a little bit better. Let me erase that. So that's pi over 8. So you might want to just change your intervals to be 2 pi over 8, just to make sure you can add and be in the same units there. Your vertical shift is going to be down 1. So right now, if we were going to take care of the vertical shift, this is my new axis, and then I'm going between, it's going to be 1, so it's going to be here and here. So that's where my cosine is going to be going between because everything got shifted down by 1. Okay, so going back, let's just make sure we do all our intervals. We're going to start at the phase shift, so that's negative pi over 8. Each time we're adding the 2 pi over 8, so if you think about it as that negative 1, you're going to add 2 to that, so you get 1 pi over 8. Add 2 again, 3 pi over 8. 5 pi over 8, and that's 4, so I need one more, 7 pi over 8. So I'm just going to make the tick marks all pi over 8s. So really, I'm going to go every 2 at that point, just to account for the pi over 8s. And if I'm going to start to graph, I'm going to go through, I'll go in black. It's cosine, so it's going to start up. Then it's going to go here, to here, to here, and then here. So again, if I was going to go through and show you this graph, if I didn't do the vertical shift, just looks like the cosine curve, right? And then I can show you the vertical shift moves it down by 1. Okay? So again, you're up, at the 0, and the vertical shift moves it down by 1. So if instead that was plus 2, you'd be up at the 0, and you'd go up 1, 2. Okay, just so that you get a sense of how things move. Let me just reset it before I move on. Okay, so there you go with that example. Okay, our last example, as you see, I already went through, and let me kind of show you. I went through and did this over here. So I pulled out a 1/3. Pulling out the 1/3, just remember I need this to be a 3 so that the 3's would cancel and I'd get the 1/2. So with that, I will have a amplitude of 4, and remember it's always the positive. I have a period of 2 pi over 1/3, so that gives me 6 pi. My interval is going to be 6 pi times 1/4, so it's going to give me 3 pi over 2. My phase shift is going to be 3 pi over 2, and my vertical shift is going to be up 2. So just to set everything up, I only have 5 lines, so I'm going to have everything be 2, I guess. So that'd be up 2. So just so you see, I'm going to let this be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So my midline is going to be up by 2. And your new lines are going to be, I'll do them in blue, you're going to be 4 either way, so that's going to be at the 6. And then if you take 4 off of that, it's going to be -2. Okay? It's cosine, so it's going to start down because of the negative. You need to figure out your intervals, so I start with 3 pi over 2. And each time I'm adding a 3 pi over 2, so I get 6 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2, 1, 2, 3, plus 3, 12 pi over 2, and then I'm going to have 15 pi over 2. So I counted the tick marks out on the x-axis, and there's 15 of them, which is helpful. So I'm going to just mark them, so I have 3 pi over 2 right there, then every 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to end here, okay? So just go up. I'm going to start at the bottom at -2 down here, then I'm going to be in the middle, then at the top, then in the middle again, and then at the bottom. So it should look like a cosine curve for you. Okay, and that's the problem. We can go over more of example 6 when you get back to class.